Your breath is the most immediate and powerful tool you have to influence your nervous system. Unlike thoughts or emotions, which can feel slippery and hard to control, your breath is always available and directly connected to your autonomic nervous system. When you are stressed or anxious, your breathing typically becomes faster and shallower. This sends a signal to your body that you are in danger, which keeps the nervous system in a state of alertness. Conversely, when you slow down and deepen your breath, you send the opposite signal, that you are safe. This is not just a feeling, it is a physiological reality. The reason breath works so quickly is because it is one of the few functions of the autonomic nervous system that you can consciously control. Most of the time, your heart rate, digestion, and stress hormones operate without your input, but your breath sits at the intersection of the conscious and unconscious. By changing how you breathe, you can directly influence your heart rate variability, blood pressure, and the balance between your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. Ancient traditions understood this deeply. Yogic practices, Buddhist meditation, and Stoic breathing exercises all placed enormous emphasis on the breath not as a relaxation technique, but as a way to regulate the entire system. Modern research in neuroscience and psychology now confirms what these traditions observed. Controlled breathing can shift you out of fight or flight and into a state where clearer thinking, emotional regulation, and genuine rest become possible. This is why breath is not just another wellness tool, it is the master key. It gives you direct access to a system that otherwise operates largely outside of your awareness and control. In the chapters that follow, we will explore exactly how to use this key, drawing from both ancient wisdom and modern understanding, so you can work with your nervous system rather than against it.
Now let's look at what actually happens in the body when we slow down our breathing, and why both ancient traditions and modern science agree on its effectiveness. When you breathe slowly, typically around 5 to 6 breaths per minute, something remarkable happens in your cardiovascular system. Your heart rate and breathing rate begin to synchronize. This is called respiratory sinus arrhythmia, and it is a sign of good nervous system health. As your breathing slows, your heart rate variability increases. Higher heart rate variability is strongly associated with better emotional regulation, resilience to stress, and overall health. From a nervous system perspective, slow breathing activates the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the main nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for rest, digestion, and recovery. When you extend your exhales and breathe slowly and deeply, you stimulate this nerve, which then sends signals throughout your body to down-regulate stress responses. This is why after just a few minutes of slow breathing, many people notice their heart rate dropping, their shoulders relaxing, and their mind becoming quieter. Ancient traditions observed this effect long before modern science could measure it. In yogic texts, slow breathing practices were described as ways to calm the fluctuations of the mind. The Stoics practiced similar techniques, using deliberate breathing to maintain composure in difficult situations. They understood that the breath was not just air moving in and out of the body, but a direct way to steady the entire system. What modern research adds is precision. We now know exactly which patterns of breathing most effectively activate the parasympathetic system. Longer exhales, in particular, are highly effective because they increase the activity of the vagus nerve. This combination of ancient observation and modern measurement gives us a clear, practical understanding of why slow breathing works so reliably.
Now, let's turn to one of the oldest and most sophisticated systems of breath regulation ever developed, the yogic tradition of pranayama. In yogic philosophy, the breath was never seen as just a physical function. It was understood as the bridge between the body and the mind. The ancient yogis observed that when the breath is erratic, the mind tends to be scattered. When the breath is steady and controlled, the mind naturally becomes more focused and calm. This observation led to the development of pranayama, a sophisticated set of breathing practices designed to regulate both the nervous system and the state of consciousness.
One of the core insights from this tradition is that the breath and the mind are in constant relationship. If you want to change the state of your mind, you can begin by changing the pattern of your breath. This is not merely a relaxation technique, it is a precise method of shifting your nervous system state, which then influences your thoughts, emotions, and perception. Ancient yogis categorized different breathing practices according to their effects. Some practices were designed to energize and focus the mind. Others were intended to cool and calm an overactive system. Still others were used to prepare the body and mind for deeper states of meditation. What they all shared was the understanding that conscious control of the breath gives you access to parts of your nervous system that normally operate automatically. Modern neuroscience has largely validated these ancient observations. Studies on pranayama show measurable changes in heart rate variability, cortisol levels, and brainwave patterns. What the yogis discovered through careful self-observation, we can now see in brain scans and physiological measurements. The practical takeaway is that breath is not just something that happens to you, it is something you can work with intentionally. The ancient yogis developed a detailed map of how different breathing patterns affect the nervous system and mind. In the following chapters, we will explore some of these patterns, both ancient and modern, so you can use your breath more skillfully in daily life.
Ancient yogis used breath as a precise tool for regulating mind and body. Now let's focus on one of the most important physiological mechanisms that makes breathwork so effective: the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the longest cranial nerve in the body and the primary nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system. It runs from the brainstem down through the neck, chest, and abdomen, connecting to many major organs, including the heart, lungs, and digestive tract. Because of its wide reach, the vagus nerve plays a central role in regulating heart rate, digestion, inflammation, and emotional state. When the vagus nerve is activated, it promotes a state of calm and recovery. Heart rate slows, digestion improves, inflammation decreases, and the body shifts out of survival mode. This is why practices that stimulate the vagus nerve are so effective for reducing anxiety and improving overall well-being. One of the most direct ways to stimulate the vagus nerve is through the breath, particularly through longer exhales. When you extend your exhale, you activate stretch receptors in the lungs that signal the vagus nerve to slow the heart rate. This is a built-in mechanism that your body already uses to recover from stress. By consciously extending your exhales, you can amplify this natural calming response. Ancient traditions understood the importance of this pathway, even without knowing the anatomical details. Yogic breathing practices that emphasize slow, extended exhales were designed to create exactly this effect, shifting the practitioner from a state of agitation or alertness into one of calm and presence. The Stoics and other philosophical traditions also emphasized slow, deliberate breathing as a way to maintain composure. What modern science has added is a clearer understanding of why these practices work at the level of the nervous system. We now know that vagal tone, the strength and responsiveness of the vagus nerve, is a key marker of nervous system health and resilience. People with higher vagal tone tend to recover from stress more quickly and experience better emotional regulation.
Having explored the science of slow breathing and the role of the vagus nerve, let's now look at practical ways to apply this knowledge in daily life. The goal is not to add another complicated routine to your day, but to integrate simple breath practices that genuinely support nervous system regulation. One of the most effective and accessible practices is simply extending your exhale. Many people naturally breathe with a longer inhale than exhale, especially when stressed.
Consciously making your exhale longer than your inhale sends a clear signal of safety to your nervous system. A simple ratio to begin with is inhaling for 4 counts and exhaling for 6 or 8 counts. This can be done for just 2 or 3 minutes at a time and still produce noticeable effects. Another powerful practice is the physiological sigh. This involves taking a deep inhale through the nose, followed by a second, shorter inhale to fully inflate the lungs, and then a long, slow exhale through the mouth. This pattern quickly resets the nervous system and can be used in moments of acute stress or as a regular reset throughout the day. A third approach is to bring awareness to your breath without trying to change it. Simply noticing the sensation of breathing, the rise and fall of the chest or belly, the feeling of air moving through the nostrils, can interrupt patterns of rumination and bring you back into the present moment. This practice of mindful breathing builds the capacity to observe your nervous system state without immediately reacting to it. The key with all of these practices is consistency rather than intensity. 2 or 3 minutes of intentional breathing, done several times throughout the day, tends to be more effective than one long session. This is because you are repeatedly signaling safety to your nervous system, which over time helps shift your baseline state.
Now let's look at a few more structured techniques that have gained attention in recent years and examine how they connect to ancient wisdom. Box breathing is a technique popularized by the military and high-performance communities. It involves inhaling for 4 counts, holding for 4 counts, exhaling for 4 counts, and holding again for 4 counts. This creates a square or box pattern. The technique is effective because it gives the mind a simple task to focus on while simultaneously regulating the breath. The holds, in particular, help build tolerance to carbon dioxide, which can improve overall breathing efficiency over time. The physiological sigh, which we touched on earlier, is another evidence-based tool. Research from Stanford neuroscientist Andrew Huberman has highlighted its effectiveness for quickly reducing stress. This technique has parallels in traditional yogic practices, where double inhales followed by long exhales were used to reset the system. What makes these modern tools valuable is that they are simple enough to use in real-life situations, during a difficult conversation, before a presentation, or when lying awake at night. They do not require special equipment or long periods of time. At the same time, it is worth recognizing that these techniques are not entirely new. Ancient traditions developed similar methods for regulating the breath and nervous system. The difference is that we now have more precise language and research to explain why they work. This allows us to use these tools with greater understanding and intentionality.
Most people breathe in ways that keep their nervous system in a mildly stressed state without realizing it. Mouth breathing, especially during sleep or rest, tends to activate the sympathetic nervous system more than nasal breathing. Shallow chest breathing, rather than deeper diaphragmatic breathing, limits the amount of oxygen that reaches the lower lungs and reduces the calming effect of the breath on the nervous system. One of the most impactful changes many people can make is to breathe through the nose as much as possible during the day and night. Nasal breathing filters, warms, and humidifies the air, and it also produces nitric oxide, which helps regulate blood pressure and supports overall cardiovascular health. During sleep, nasal breathing tends to result in deeper, more restorative rest compared to mouth breathing. Another common issue is breathing too quickly or with too much effort. The breath does not need to be forced. In fact, trying too hard to breathe correctly can create its own tension. The most effective breathing for nervous system regulation is usually quiet, slow, and relatively effortless. Simple awareness often brings the biggest improvement. Throughout the day, you can gently check in with your breath. Are you breathing through your nose or mouth? Is your breath high in your chest or lower in your belly? Is it fast or slow?
Just noticing these patterns without judgment begins to create the conditions for change. One of the most practical applications of breathwork is its ability to help regulate emotions in the moment. When strong emotions arise, anger, anxiety, sadness, or overwhelm, the breath often becomes disrupted. By consciously returning to a slower, deeper breathing pattern, you can create just enough space between the emotion and your reaction to it. This does not mean suppressing or ignoring emotions. It means giving your nervous system a chance to settle enough that you can respond rather than simply react. The breath acts as an anchor that keeps you from being completely carried away by emotional waves. Different emotional states tend to respond to slightly different breathing patterns. For anxiety or agitation, longer exhales are often helpful because they activate the parasympathetic system. For low energy or emotional numbness, slightly more energizing breaths, such as a gentle inhale emphasis, can be useful. The key is developing sensitivity to what your system needs in any given moment. Ancient traditions understood this connection between breath and emotion. Yogic texts describe how different breathing practices can be used to work with specific mental and emotional states. The Stoics also used breathing as a way to maintain composure when facing difficult situations or strong feelings. Developing this capacity takes practice. It begins with noticing how your breath changes when emotions arise, and then gently guide it back toward a slower, more even rhythm. Over time, this becomes a reliable tool for staying steady, even when emotions are intense. The way you start and end your day has a significant influence on your nervous system. Morning and evening breath practices can help set a calmer baseline and improve the quality of both your waking hours and your sleep. A short morning breath practice can help shift your nervous system out of whatever state it was in during sleep and into a more alert yet calm state for the day ahead. Even 3 to 5 minutes of slow, intentional breathing can make a noticeable difference in how reactive or steady you feel as the day begins. Many people find that combining breath awareness with gentle movement, such as stretching or a short walk, amplifies the effect. In the evening, breath practices can help signal to your nervous system that it is time to down-regulate. Avoiding stimulating breath patterns close to bedtime and instead favoring slow, extended exhales can support the transition into rest. Some people also find it helpful to do a few minutes of breath-focused relaxation while lying in bed before sleep. The key is consistency. A short daily practice done at the same times each day tends to be more effective than occasional longer sessions. Over time, these rituals become signals that help your nervous system transition more smoothly between different states, from sleep to waking, from activity to rest. Throughout this series, we have explored why the breath is uniquely powerful as a tool for nervous system regulation. We looked at the science behind slow breathing, the wisdom of ancient traditions, the role of the vagus nerve, and practical ways to work with your breath in daily life. Now let's bring it all together into one simple practice you can use any time you need to shift your state. The practice is straightforward. Find a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4, and out through your nose or mouth for a count of 6 or 8. Make the exhale longer than the inhale. Continue this pattern for 5 minutes. That is all. What makes this simple practice effective is that it directly communicates safety to your nervous system. The longer exhale activates the vagus nerve.
The rhythm gives your mind something steady to focus on. Over just 5 minutes, many people notice their heart rate slowing, their shoulders dropping, and their mind becoming quieter. You can use this practice in the morning to set a calm tone for the day, in the middle of a stressful moment to regain steadiness, or in the evening to prepare for rest. The more consistently you use it, the more your nervous system learns that it can return to a regulated state relatively quickly. Thank you for joining me through this exploration of breath as the master key to nervous system regulation. If this series has been meaningful to you, I would appreciate it if you liked the video and subscribed to the channel. Sharing it with someone who might benefit from these ideas would also mean a lot.